just a really quick introduction. So Steve and I, we've been working very hard on sharing knowledge and enthusiasm for electric vehicles for about 9 years. Well, longer maybe, but and it's been our full-time job for at least 3 years now. So we have gone to lots of fairs and we've shown people our cars, and we've had conversations with people here in New Zealand and all over the world. Can everybody see? Can everybody see the screen? Yeah. So we're going to have a chat with you today about electric.
Brief chat.
A very brief chat.
Nice short
A nice short chat. He's going to do the talking.
Am I?
We're going to share the talking.
We'll see.
And we're gonna show you a little bit about why we are so excited about electric cars. Okay? Now, electric cars can change the world. Now let's start at the beginning.
This is the problem. So nearly every car that you drive on the road today, whether it's petrol or diesel, it uses something called fossil fuels. Does everybody know what that means? Yeah. Fossil fuels. So fuel that's made from long dead animals and plants, like millions of years old, the oil in the ground, and there's only a limited amount of it, but it's quite difficult to turn it into petrol or diesel, and all that effort that goes into making fuel generates a lot of pollution, which is sad, makes me sad. And then when you put that petrol and diesel in your car and you drive it around, it spews out these nasty poisons, which is also makes us sad, particularly in New Zealand, where we like to be, we like to think we're proud of our clean, green country. And here's an alternative: electricity. So electricity in New Zealand is particularly clean. We make most of it from water. So the sun shines on the ocean and lakes, and the air evaporates, and the water goes up into the air and forms clouds, and the clouds rain down into lakes and rivers. We collect the water and use gravity to power generators to make electricity. So it's very, very clean. No nasty poisonous emissions there. And it turns out that these days it's possible to use electricity to drive a car. And now, the first electric car was invented in about 1900, so over 100 years ago. In fact, the very first cars that existed were electric. And it was, unfortunately, the invention of the starter motor, which was an electric motor, made it possible then for people to use petrol and diesel, and then those got very, very popular. And the reason they got popular was because petrol and diesel have a lot of energy in them, so cars can drive a great distance, and the fuel was cheap. And people didn't really think about how much pollution was being created at the time when they invented those cars, and it's only really in recent years that it's become much more of a problem as millions and millions of people are driving millions and millions of cars. So we would like it if everybody drove electric cars, because then we could have clean fuel and no more poisonous gases being released into the atmosphere for people driving cars. But what does an electric car look like?
What does an electric car look like?
Well, like this.
Like a normal car, right?
You wouldn't even know you were driving past an electric car if you saw one on the road, unless it happened to be this one, which is a very flash electric car.
And we have the only one of those in all of New Zealand here today.
And it's parked right outside.
Yeah, but you have to ask really good questions, or you're not allowed to go see it. Your teachers, it's up to your teachers. They have total control over the process.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's my favorite. Thanks.
So are there any questions?
This one costs about as much as a house. So we don't need. No,
half a house.
Half a house in Auckland, a full house in
I'll tell you what, it's half the price of a Ferrari.
It's half the price of a
but it goes just as fast.
It's a supercar, so that's not like your normal kind of car. But do we have a Leaf here?
Down here.
Here's a Leaf. Okay, this one costs. You can buy a second-hand secondhand one that comes in from Japan, and you can drive on New Zealand roads, and you can charge up. Do you want to turn around?
What? Oh.
You can charge up using the ChargeNet NZ network, which makes the battery full really fast. So you can fill up one of these cars in about 20 minutes. So that's just long enough to stop and get an ice cream, and then you can keep driving. And
that costs $20,000.
$20,000. Now that sounds like a lot of money, but your mom and your dad probably buy a secondhand car every 5 to 7 years, and those cars generally cost around the $20,000 mark. Now the other thing about buying an electric car, and you can tell your mom and dad this, is that there's not a lot of money into service after you buy the car. So you don't have to change the oil, because there's no oil. You don't have to change the spark plugs. Do you guys know what all this stuff is?
Yeah.
And you have to bring your car in and to the mechanic, and the mechanic's always covered in lots of oily stuff, and it's a dirty, messy place. Well, with an electric car, there's no mess, and there's no oil, and there's no grease, and there's not a lot of moving parts. So your mom and dad are going to save heaps of money on servicing.
And what we also didn't mention is the electricity to run electric cars is 1/4 of the price of petrol or diesel.
So it's,
Quarter of the price.
So for every dollar that your moms and dads are spending on petrol, they could spend 1/4 of that, so 25 cents, and that money would stay here in New Zealand and help the New Zealand economy. That's kind of macro, but yes. Yes.
So you're talking about how it's not very oily and messy.
Yes.
So what's like the main power source? I mean, like what?
How does it work?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Does everybody want to know how an electric car works? Yeah? Okay, we'll try to explain it really simply.
Okay, off the cuff. Have you ever played with magnets? Yes. And you know how they have a really strong pull against each other? So it turns out when you run electricity through a wire, it creates magnetism, just the same way. And so if you bunch up the wire in really tight loops, then you can concentrate that magnetism and make a really strong magnet. And that's called an electro magnet, where you run electricity through it and it creates magnetism. And so if you arrange it in just the right way, instead of it just snapping together, you can make it rotate. And that's called an electric motor. And that's what makes an electric car work, is magnetism.
Pushed by electricity.
So guys, if you think about when we talked about how electricity is generated, using a generator, it's exactly the same way. It's exactly the same mechanism, isn't it? It just works in reverse. So instead of a magnet moving and making electricity, electricity goes through and makes a magnet.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And makes it spin and pushes your car down.
So we talked about copper cores and making electricity.
Question over here.
That's perfect.
Does it car have like pistons and stuff?
No, it doesn't have any pistons, and it doesn't have any explosions. So you're obviously a very bright kid, so you understand that a traditional car moves forward because little explosions happen in the engine. None of that happens in an electric car.
So that's another huge advantage of an electric motor, is it only really has one main moving part instead of an engine which has pistons and spark plugs and injectors and valves and all kinds of complicated things that break down.
Exactly. The more bits you have, the more chances there are that something's going to go wrong. So keeping it simple is better. There's so many questions. Okay.
With a car that runs on petrol and diesel and everything, how do you charge up? Where do you do you have to plug something in to charge the car into something?
If it runs on both?
Talking about.
Are you talking about the plug-in hybrids?
So like,
I think she's asking about
cars
electric
like
cars.
this is you just go to the gas station.
Oh, that's an excellent question.
Yeah.
How
So
do you
here's the
charge
awesome
up?
part about an electric car is that, you know, your house, on the wall, you've got those sockets.
Yep.
You can plug an electric car into any 3-pin socket.
There you go.
And it will charge overnight and be full in the morning.
So your house is a petrol station for an electric car. So what happens most of the time, your moms and dads will just use the electricity from their house to charge their cars when they own an electric car. That's about 95% of the usage, right, in New Zealand, because most of us have a place that we can plug the car in overnight. But when you go on long trips, what Steve is doing is, turn around again.
Oh yeah.
ChargeNet NZ is putting in fast chargers. So if you plug into your house, it's going to take 6 to 8 hours to fill up your car, but that happens while you sleep. Same as charging up your laptop or your cell phone. But if you want to go visit your family in Wellington, or you want to go visit your family in Palmerston North, then you're going to have to charge a little faster and keep going, and that's where ChargeNet is like a petrol station that's not your house. Does all that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah?
So,
Sure?
very patient question.
Very patient and super patient.
Two quick questions.
Yes.
One, how long does the car last with the battery?
Okay, like how far will it go?
Yeah.
On a
Or
charge?
then, like how long will it last?
How many years does the battery last?
What do you mean, how far can you drive?
We can answer both
Yeah,
those
how
questions.
many hours?
When
can you
you
drive?
plug it in and you do it,
This one goes about 120 kilometers, so that's from here to Hamilton. And then you have to charge up again and turn around. This one goes more like 300 kilometers. And then we have the other
And
Teslas.
this one up
This
here
one up here,
goes 400
400
kilometers.
kilometers. And then the
this-
S is the S there, goes
That
500.
is the S.
Yeah, but that goes 500 if you get the base model.
400.
Anyway.
Anyway.
450.
And you
Yeah,
have
it goes
another question.
450.
Second
and the second
question.
question is like, does the battery create a lot of heat inside the car?
No.
Well, then how does the air conditioning go through?
The air conditioning takes a lot of, it'll use some of the battery. So if you're not using energy, this is the thing.
You know, in your house, you've got heaters in your house and air conditioners in your house. Those all run on electricity.
Yes.
It's exactly the same with an electric car.
It just
You
uses-
have a heat pump or an air conditioner or even an electric heater built into the car, and it uses some of the electricity from the battery to do that.
So you'll go further if you're not using the heater and if you're not using the air conditioner. And the really cool thing is you start thinking about the energy that you're using, and it's really nice. You start thinking about the energy that goes into the car from your house, and you start thinking about the energy that you're using as you drive your car, and it's actually really fun, and it means you get to learn a lot. Yes.
So if you were to like plug the cables and socket to the car,
Yeah.
would it take up like heaps of power?
Well, yeah, it'll take the power from your house, yeah, and it'll cost.
It's no more power than boiling a kettle or using a hairdryer.
Yeah.
But it takes a long time to charge the car, and then it ends up costing you, like you said, about a quarter as much as petrol.
Yes, and I think it's worth saying that you do have to use an approved plug-in and an approved socket to make sure that it's safe. So, that's another thing that everybody has to remember. There's so many great questions. You've already asked one, so I'm going to let somebody who hasn't. Yes.
What happens if you're driving the cars and then you like run out of electricity?
If you run out of juice, well, that's why ChargeNet exists, so that you can keep charging very quickly.
Yeah, the cars all give you plenty of warning that you're running out of electricity, and if you do, it's exactly the same as if you run out of petrol. You need to get a tow to the nearest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same as if you run out of petrol, exactly, or you get, yeah.
How long does it usually last?
Okay, so a charge between 120 Ks and 450 Ks, depending on the car that you drive. Now the batteries themselves, for 10 years of normal driving, you don't have to worry about swapping out the batteries. So the batteries will continue to fill up and take you from point A to point B to 80% efficiency for about 10 years. Those are the stats. Is that too many numbers, or does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Makes
Yeah,
makes
too many
sense.
questions.
Oh, you guys are awesome. Okay.
This one? Question, go ahead.
What would happen if you broke down and then tried to get onto the website that you have
If you broke down and you needed to get onto the website,
You can phone the number.
yeah.
Yeah, you can still phone. You can phone. So in order to use our network, the ChargeNet network, you can you can text it in. So you can text a number, and then that'll start the machine. Do you have the phone? You can use this.
Yeah,
So
there you
your wonderful receptionist. She drove this today, and if she wanted to fill out, she could just go beep beep. and the car would start. So that's another way. Or you can phone the number. It's a toll-free number, and you can phone to somebody, and they'll start the machine for you. Or you can use the internet, and there's an app called PlugShare, and you can start it remotely from there. So there's 4 different ways to start one of our machines, and so there's lots of ways. Okay, Steve, next question.
Maybe just a couple more, and then we'll tie it up.
Your house, will it cost more on your power bill?
Yes.
Yes.
But you're not spending it at the petrol station.
Yes.
So you're saving money. You're saving money.
Yeah. And like we said, a quarter as much as the petrol would cost.
I think he
has been very patient. Yes.
So is an electric car really quiet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it really quiet?
I didn't think it was on. I was like, you need to you would have been so quiet. I couldn't hear a thing. You reckon it should
They completely
I'm enjoying this a lot. I tell you what, we would love to show you the cars, and we'd love for everybody to do everything that the teachers say in an orderly and safe fashion. So we're going to wrap up the presentation. I need to say thank you. You have been a very intelligent, well-behaved, highly engaged audience. I wish adults were as good as you guys have been today, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. So thank you so much for letting us come.